everyone. As you can see, we got a Tesla in the garage, which doesn't really fit in with any of the other vehicles. You know, turbo Honda Civic, 400 horsepower RX7 with a carburetor, ITB race car, RX7, my dad's 600 plus horsepower drag car, and then you've got this silly electric car in here. But it's been a really great car actually, and I got a little quick story for you guys with it. I bought this car about 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years, and the plan was electric car, Tesla specifically, I wanted a Model 3, air ride, wheels, and sound system stuff, and be done with it. Don't do anything else, just enjoy it as it was. So it would be a car that was cool because I like air ride. I think lowered cars look cool, and it would have the reliability that it needs because it's not all messed with. It has air conditioning, power steering, you know, it's quiet, which is none of what these cars are. Not a single car in here has heat or air conditioning besides this one. They're all like race cars, you know? So to have a car that you can just get in, do whatever you want, but also still looks cool was what I wanted. Recently, over the past couple months, I had been toying with the idea of possibly getting rid of this. There were times where I was getting offers on Carvana for like $4,000 over what I paid for this car. So I could have sold it and made a bunch of money, but at the same time, at that point, I really enjoyed the car because it was exactly what I wanted. Then fast forward to probably, like I said, 3 or 4 months ago, I decided that I think that I want to get rid of the car just because it's so expensive. I can take that money and funnel it into other car projects that I want. You know, I could take this one car and replace it with 3 other cars. Then I think I came to the realization the other day that although I could have more cars for this one, there's things I'm going to be giving up: autopilot, reliability. You know, this thing has amazing headlights. It's super quiet. It rides really comfortable, and it's just different. So I decided that I'm going to keep it, and I'm just probably going to do something else to it to kind of make me fall in love with it again. Being that I'm keeping it, we're going to be putting all that stuff that I took out back into it. And I guess we're gonna make a video about it just because it will take a little bit, and it also gives you guys some insight on stuff that I'm doing in the shop, because that's what I do. I record what I do in the shop when I'm in the shop, and then I put it on the internet and you guys get to watch it. We're gonna get the Tesla on the lift. We're gonna tear it all apart, get into putting the suspension back in the car because it's on stock suspension now. We gotta get all the bags in it. And should just be a good hangout day. We're just gonna kind of wrench and whatever. And then when we're done, we'll probably take it out and I'll air it out for you guys. You guys will get to see what it looks like. But for right now, this is what it looks like. And as you guys just saw real quick, what we did was I made new little bars here. That's what holds the bag to the lower control arm. Factory, this is the bar that they give you with the bags, which I guess is doable, like it's workable, because that's what I used on the car for the whole period of time until I took these off. But what happens is this bar bends and basically turns into a V just because this is so thin. So this time we went with thicker metal on the bags, and I also did stainless steel for the threaded part and for the nut, because last time what happened was they rusted and I couldn't get the nut off. So to get the threaded part out of the bag, I welded this other nut on after I cut it, and I had to also cut one of these plates. So rather than just making one new one and running this old one that I unbent back, I ran two of the new plates because they're thicker and should not bend. So I have this issue where these nuts in here that hold the strut into place require a 1/2 inch or a 13mm socket, but the socket sidewall is too thick to go down in this. So I made a ground down socket, but what happened is this actually split in two places. I'm not sure if you can see that. So what happens is you get it down in there and it splits, so it rounds out around the nut, and then it flares this out and you can't get the socket back up through. So what I should have done a long time ago, which I have to do now, is I've got a 13mm socket and I'm going to grind out these upper holes so that you can actually use the right socket. And what I'm basically gonna do is round out around on the top of these. That way I can get this 13mm socket down in there. I don't know what type of socket or whatever Tesla uses when they put these together from the factory, but yeah, that design sucks. So you just gotta do that 2 more times. I already did all of them on the other side. Then we'll be able to get this front suspension out of here. Now that everything is done up top, we got the car lifted up. I'm gonna undo some of the nuts and bolts on the bottom for the spindle that holds it to the lower control arm. Just so we can pull that out of the way, we gotta undo one of the nuts on the sway bar end link. Then we should be able to just bring the strut assembly out, put the bag up in there, tighten everything up, and then I'm gonna do the other side. Once that's done, we'll move on to the rear of the car, which is basically the same stuff, except the strut and the coil spring in the rear are separate. So let's get to work. Moving on to the rear. I just did the other side just to kind of freshen my mind up. But we're gonna pull these 2 bolts out here. They've got nuts on the other side of them. That'll let the spring push this perch down. We can pull the spring out. And then the other one holds the shock in, which will undo the 2 bolts on the top, pull that out. We gotta switch the top of the shock pieces onto the aftermarket ones. Then we'll put them up in there and I guess retighten everything back up. This time, there's a little rubber isolator for the upper part of the spring where it meets the car. Before, I didn't run that on the airbag. This is a machine fit, so it fits perfectly to the chassis. But what happens when you hit bumps, this unloads and actually slaps against the chassis. So we're gonna use that rubber isolator that the spring currently uses. It doesn't fit in this at all, but I'm hoping that it stops that smashing noise that I used to hear. And this plate will also make a big difference because it won't bend so much like last time. And then hopefully this stainless hardware doesn't rust away. So let's get into this. We'll start working on this side. So now that I got this rubber piece out of the car, this is what I was talking about. This form fits the chassis just like this does, but we're gonna put this on the chassis and then this is gonna kind of sit on top of it. It may deform it some, and that's okay. As long as it stops the clunking from happening, that's all right. The one downfall of this is that if you're putting space between this and the chassis, you're effectively raising the car. So hopefully we don't have issues with the car not airing out completely, but I believe it'll be all right. Worst case scenario, I can always cut these off. I just didn't want to cut these because I don't want to modify any of the factory stuff, because if you cut this, it's permanently cut. So whatever, I guess we'll put it all back together. So it's been a few hours and I've been tinkering with the car a little bit. I ended up putting the wheel spacers back on the car, torqued all that down. I put the front liner back in the car as well. Got that all tightened up. Before I put the front liner in, I put the nuts on the top hats for the bags, tightened them all down, made sure those are good to go. And then as you guys just saw, we put the wheels on the car. I believe everything from here on out should just be running electrical for the amplifier and for the air management, and then plumbing the air lines back into the air management. With that being said, I guess we'll just tackle it and get it over with. just like that, we're all done. So as you can see, the car got it laid out here. It's the bag Tesla that I used to have. So I guess it's nice to have it back. I was going to include in this video, but I already know that it's running crazy long. I was going to install my subwoofer and amplifier again. I run a SCAR 8-inch SDR and RP 350 to match with it. But I've decided that I'm also going to be upgrading that. I was gonna order two 12s and a 1200 watt amp, but the 212 box won't fit in this trunk. So I ordered two of the SDR 10s, and those are a 600 watt subwoofer a piece. So I got a 1200 watt amp to match those, and the 10s should fit in there perfectly. So stay on the lookout for that. We should be getting those subs, box, and amp very soon, just waiting for them to come in. We're gonna install those. I'll probably make that a video, but I just wanted to get this car back to how it was, and then we're also gonna be upgrading it like we talked about. That's gonna do it for this video. I appreciate you guys hanging out. It was probably a little bit longer one, just off of guessing off of how much footage I took. I figured there was no better time to kind of introduce you guys formally to the Model 3, just because I wasn't sure if I was gonna keep it or not, but now that I am keeping it, this is her. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out.